Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk, the preview show. It's good to be back. I feel like I've not done one of these in ages. And there's a familiar face back from last season. He's Lincoln's own, part of that League One podcast. It's Jake Tonge. How are you doing, Jake?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. I've got Scabala fever at the moment, but yeah, I'm doing very, very well, mate. I hope you are too. It's good to be back on. You're one of the podcasts that I said to you earlier in the day that I've sort of kept my eye on and listened to since I came on in February. So it's very good to be back on, mate.
It's good to have you, and I hope that fever isn't contagious.
Oh, it's very contagious. It took me a matter of 2 weeks to catch it, and I'm literally I've got so many symptoms. It's unbelievable.
For audio listeners, Jake is sporting a pretty good Christmas jumper. He's got a Christmas tree behind him as well, so feeling quite festive here tonight on Rams Talk. Touched on there that you're a part of this new thing, new wave that's appeared on Twitter. I've checked it out. That League One podcast. Let me know a bit more about what it's about, I guess.
Yeah, so it's a brand new League One podcast. Me and a few mates thought there was a bit of a gap in the market for just a general podcast. You might know the other three lads if you're sort of into your League One or Football League content. I'm just sort of the one that's clinging on to all their fame, really. You've got Tom from 4-0 written all over it, who's a massive Pompey fan. Nappers or Cod's Vlogs, who I'm sure you guys will have seen before from Fleetwood Town, and then Jack Ward, who's a Wardy, we call him, is a big Oxford fan. So it comes out every Monday. We do have a Patreon, but I won't plug that on here. But it's an hour and a half chat on League One. We get through plenty of Derby County because normally, especially in the last couple of weeks, the Derby games have been pretty good to talk about, especially this weekend. So we did have maybe a 5-10 minute chat on the win down at Orient. So if you want to come over and listen, feel free. It's that League One podcast.
Brilliant. And are you nice about Derby County on the whole, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of controversial takes on Derby, which I told you this afternoon. But yeah, it's I think we genuinely are when they play well. Sometimes they, as you'll know, sometimes they play not very well and somehow win. So yes, we are kind of controversial and complimentary about them as well.
We'll come on to that later, but for now, let's talk about Lincoln. Obviously, we discussed Lincoln in the previews last season. You went on to take 4 points off of us. We've just spoken off air, and you said how you managed to pick up results against the top teams, which was a bit of a habit last year for Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
How's the season going so far for you?
Difficult because the season's sort of in 3 chunks so far. So you've got the start of the season where we came out with a bit of a house on fire. We had Bolton away, which, Bolton away is the toughest game that you could have got on opening day. We got beat there. But following that, we reacted really well. We beat Blackpool and Wycombe, both by 3 goals to 0 at home. Got a win away at Shrewsbury. We also went to Sheffield United in the Carabao Cup and beat them, albeit on penalties. It was a good start to the season. And then things sort of took a bit of a sour turn. It seemed that behind the scenes there were issues with the playing staff and the management team, and everyone wasn't quite singing from the same hymn sheet. In September, apart from a really, really good performance against West Ham in the Carabao Cup, it was pretty dire. Performances were not great. We were bottom of the league for attacking metrics, so our XG was as bad as Shrewsbury, and they've scored 13 goals all season. We weren't getting into the box, and then we sacked a manager. Mark Kennedy left after a defeat to Burton Albion at the start of October. Tom Shaw took over. He's been at the club since Michael Appleton sort of came in about 4 or 5 years ago. Took over for 9 games in all comps. Did a pretty good job. Some big wins away at Fleetwood. Point down at Exeter, a really good home win against Charlton. And I'm sure if you've had interim managers that you want to be successful, but you don't want to land the job, it sort of gets a bit stale towards the end, where you can tell everyone wants a new change, a new chapter. Unfortunately, we got one with Michael Scabala, who came in pretty much a month after we sacked Kennedy. And it's been pretty good since then. He had a tricky afternoon at Stevenage, not as tricky as you lot by the looks of it. And then since then, wins away at Leyton Orient, a 3-0 thumping of Cambridge. We got a good point against a Barnsley team that are around us in the table as well. Got knocked out of the BSM trophy last night, but I'm not too fussed about that. And, if we can, we're recording this before the game on Saturday against Reading, take another 3 points and jump closer to the top 6, then that would be a good start. So it's been up and down, Jamie, to be honest, mate. But it's Lincoln City. We're enjoying it. Absolutely loving it.
Yeah, like you said there, we're recording before the Reading game for you and before the Wycombe game with Derby. So there's still, I guess, a few things to happen this weekend before we meet each other. But yeah, like you said there, I think looking at recent fixtures, I mean, you take it, wouldn't you? You take going away to Wigan and getting a result. You take a draw against Barnsley as well. So things are looking good. Obviously, currently 9th in the table and currently 5 points behind us. Obviously played a few more games than the likes of Derby and Barnsley that are sitting just outside of the playoffs. What's your gut feel of what's going to happen this season? Do you think it's going to be a similar situation as it was last year, or do you think you could potentially push for them playoffs?
I've said this on that League One pod a few times. I think the top 10 of the league currently, so down the chart, I think that they are the best 10 teams in the league for me. I think we'll finish probably towards the back end of that top 10. But I think if we've still got something to play for when our strikers come back, because I'm sure you'll have read that we've had a bit of a striker issue this year. So Ben House, who got sent off in this fixture last year, stupidly, and cost us 3 points. 2 points. He's been unavailable since the start of September. He's out till February. We had Tyler Walker as well. We signed him injured. I know he's from localish parts to Derby. He's very well known in the red half of the East Midlands. He came in injured from Coventry City, got playing and then got injured, and he was meant to come back against Wigan, but he's suffered a setback and is going to be out now for the rest of the season. We've got Jack Vale on loan from Blackburn, who's been okay, and that's pretty much it. We've got Jovan McCarmer, actually, who came through at Derby. He's our starting striker at the moment, only 19. But depending on how that goes, if we're still in sort of the 5 to 6 point, range of the playoffs by January, so if we can stick around the playoffs for Christmas, I think the ambition has to try and be to get in the top 6. I think League One is a lot weaker this year. There are not so many big teams. There's an opportunity for us. If not, if we finish, last year we were maybe 15, 20 points off the playoffs, Jamie. If we can close that gap to 5 points or 5 to 10, I think it's been a success. And then from there on in next season, try and, go again under Skabala and try and get in them next year. But I don't think we'll get top 6 this year. I think we'll finish 7th, 8th, that sort of bracket.
Yeah, I guess, like you said there, as long as you see progression and as long as you can see moving in the right direction, then that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah,
you've obviously mentioned there about having the injury problems.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the danger man when you come to Pride Park?
There's a few. There's quite a few. So I'll walk you through it. So our right wing back, Lasse Sorensen, has been one of the most productive wing backs in the league this year. I think he's got 4 goals and 3 assists, which is pretty decent from right wing back. He was signed as a central midfielder under Michael Appleton, got frozen out, and then under Kennedy found himself playing wing back, because I think in training he once said that he played wing back for Stoke or MK Dons, where he had a loan spell. Ended up being pushed out there and has done really well since. He's been a revelation since moving to right wing back. He'll be dangerous. Number 2 on the right hand side. You've got arguably one of the best midfield duos in the league for me, Ethan Errahan and Ethan Hamilton. Both, one's from Glasgow, one's from Edinburgh. Gab Sutton, if you know Gab, calls them the Ethan compound. He loves them. He thinks they complement each other really well. Both left-footed midfielders. Errahan, we signed from St Mirren. Actually, he played at Pride Park in the draw. Was really impressive. He's kicked on and been fantastic this year. And then we've complemented by adding Ethan Hamilton, who's been around this league for a while. He came through at Man United. He's been with Bolton, Southend, Peterborough United, and most recently Accrington, who we paid a fee to release him from his contract there. And then going forward, tough, because I don't know who we're going to play up there, but of the ones that are available that I know of, Danny Mandroiu is someone that's been really good this season in patches and has all the technical ability in the world to play higher at than this level. So he's one of those players, Jamie, that when they're on it, like, he is one of the best players in the league. But the problem is, it's not his day very often. He can do things technically on the ball where I don't think anyone else in the Lincoln squad can do. So I've named you 4 there. If we had fit players, I'd probably name a couple more. But unfortunately, we've been struck by injury. But those are 4 certainly to look out for.
Yeah, and like you say there, I think it's the reason why a lot of players are playing at this level is because they have got those moments of brilliance. However, you see them maybe once every 5 games, whereas maybe some in the Championship, it's once every 2 or once every 3, something like that. But if they have their day, you just know that, they're going to be a match winner. So, yeah, we'll look out for those players. I know there's been a bit of difference between kind of, last year and this season. One thing I wanted to ask you was with regards to the new gaffer. How is he approaching fixtures kind of home and away? Is there any difference? What's his kind of brand of football?
Well, when we appointed him, he'd been at Leeds. By the way, he's got such an interesting journey into professional football. If you've got the time to go and read into it, he came through, he did Loughborough Uni, which is down the road from Derby. He did a lot of stuff with the FA, with futsal and under-18s. He's developed some really good players. Rico Lewis is someone that he's worked with at Man City, Max Kilman as well from Wolves. So if you've got time, and not as many people are as nerdy as I am, go and look into how he got into football. And then, like I say, he was at Leeds, and he implemented a 4-back at Leeds. Now, whether that's because he was told to by the first team manager or the football operations at Leeds, played with a 4-2-3-1. Since he's come in, he's not changed too much, but he has changed quite a lot. The formation is pretty similar. Obviously, it's when you come into a situation where none of the players are people that you've recruited personally, he's sort of had to deal with what he's got. And with the injuries, it's not been too easy. So we normally play with the formation that we had last year, which was a 3-4-3 sort of, but with 2 number 10s instead of out-and-out wingers. So we have Danny Mandroiu on the left, and tends to be Ali Smith on the right, who's a central midfielder by trade, sort of playing as these number 10s next to a striker. Home and away doesn't really matter. We play fast football side to side. Passing's really good. Lots of pressing as well. He obviously coached under Jesse Marsh at Leeds, who's had the Red Bull education, where it's pretty much constant pressing. If you watch Leipzig or Salzburg, it's a pretty heavy metal style of football. And I think one of his main objectives at Lincoln was to come in and have more possession. Because if you look under Kennedy, we played quite low possession football. We would have 35% possession and still win games. One of his remits was to, if you've got your players on the ball, you're more likely to be able to positively impact the game. You then also, if you've got your best players on the ball, for a club like Lincoln, who are very much a selling club, and we all are, let's be honest, if your players are on the ball more and showcasing their abilities, clubs from the Championship or the Premier League are going to come down and look at them and see more of them and want to spend more money on them. So, it's a 3-back, but it is good it's good football. It was turgid last night, but it tends to be on the floor, playing through the thirds, attacking and when we haven't got the ball, we will very much be pressing and which is why it's such a shame that we haven't got Ben House, who's such a good pressing centre forward. I think if you remember the fixture at Pride Park in February, you had Cashin playing at centre back. I think you had Forsyth as well. And he did not give either of them a second's rest, which is why he got sent off like a prat. But it is good football. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be different to what you guys are used to seeing as well.
Yeah, and obviously, looking at the table, we've discussed it just a few moments ago, you're there or thereabouts. You're in touch and distance of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll be backed in January to go out and kind of get some reinforcements?
Difficult. Now, I know the club have a bit more money to play around with. I'm not sure if you'd have seen, we've had a lot of American investment in recent years, and a family called the Jabara family, they they sort of co-owned the San Diego Loyal, which were like a championship version in America, a football team. Unfortunately, they've had to disband because the MLS have got a franchise club moving to the city, so they've had to sort of take the money out of there and move it into us, fortunately. Landon Donovan is a big part of that. Obviously, he's a big name in America. He's now a strategic advisor of the club as well. So do I expect the club to back Skubala? I do. Maybe not in January, in the summer, big time, I'd have thought. I think January will be a case of, well, we're in a good position. Let's see what we can do. We will no doubt have players come in. I imagine we might use our link to Leeds United to try and get one of their players on loan. Obviously, they've got a really good crop of young players coming through. We've already signed someone for January as well, a lad from Ireland, Jack Moylan, who was a top scorer in the League of Ireland this year, playing as a number 10. He's already through the door. I don't expect us to go heavy this window in the summer if you guys are still in League One, which you shouldn't be, but you might be. I hope not for your sake, but for my sake, I very much do, because I enjoy my trips to Pride Park. I think next summer you'll see the club splash a bit of cash, try and negotiate with our current players and try and keep them under contract, because we've got some players that can play higher level, such as Hamilton, Errohan, Danny Mandroy. So I think we'll be active, but I don't think you'll see us splashing the cash.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, I'm not too sure what Derby are planning to do, but you get to this point in December and all the rumours start coming back. Johnson Clark Harris has been seen at a Starbucks in Derby, and Cashin's down in Brighton on some fairground ride or something like that. So we'll have to see what happens for both sides. But it does sound like it's a positive time for you at the moment. So hopefully you're coming to Pride Park and not having a positive day out. But past that, you can enjoy yourself. Obviously, League One. The teams in League One. I know we've spoken previously, and you've had some interest in Derby as well.
Yeah.
Where do you feel that Lincoln are going to win this game? What's kind of where do they need to dominate, or what do they need to do to beat Derby County at home?
Difficult, because I think in a lot of home games you've not really played too well. I think your best performances at home have been the win against Northampton and then the one against Barnsley as well. I feel like they were your best two performances. In other games, you've sort of sneaked by. I think it would be fair to say. I think the Fleetwood game is one that you just crept over the line, and I seem to think Cambridge came and got a point this year. Exeter narrowly beat as well. So we have to sort of make it a game where, I think we've got big lads. I think we might try and come and give you a scrap. We might try and, land a couple of blows on you, see how you take it. And if not quite Stevenage, but, just trying to try and dominate the game physically. And if we can do that and sort of, change your mentality from where Derby County, we should be having 30 shots on target here or whatever it is. That's how I think that will help. I think also midfield, depending on how you guys set up. But if Errohan and Hamilton both have a good game, we tend to win. Also, if Mandroy has a good game as well, like if he brings in a moment of magic as well, look, I think it's going to be tough for us. The run that you guys are on, we're on a good run ourselves, but it's going away to Pride Park. It's come away with a point, and you've done really well. So I would take a point now. If you offer me a point, I would snatch your hand off, to be honest, because I know how good your squad is and how good you can be. I watched the game against Northampton, thought you were brilliant, and the Barnsley game, you got a penalty to send you on your way, but after that you looked really comfortable, I thought. We just have to try and disrupt your rhythm a little bit, and then hope that that you can't get it back, and then we have an opportunity there to hurt you in the transition.
Well, it's Christmas, but I'm not offering any points out, unfortunately. So you'll have to fight for it. But I mean, it sounds like you've got potential to come and fight, and I think what you've said there is probably what I'd be most worried about, because I feel at times, especially in the middle, we're just not good enough. Hourihane drops a little bit too deep for my liking, and then it's left to the other two in there to try and sometimes chase shadows and compete. And as you know, with the likes of Max Bird, Warne, Louis Sibley, they're good technical players, but they haven't got that kind of physicality that's maybe needed at times. So, yeah, we'll have to see on that one. Who's the Derby player that you'd say, I hope he's not available? I hope he's well, not long-term injury, but sick for that particular game.
Well, at the minute, I think there's only one really, Nathaniel Mendez-Laing. Been in some hot form the last month. I think I think last year he was sort of overshadowed a little bit by the greatness of David McGoldrick. I think he had a decent season, but I don't think he reached the potential. I think when he's had a year at Derby now, he's decided, he is one of your best players and most focal players going forward. And a fit Nathaniel Mendez-Laing at this level is pretty decent. It seems like. I watched back the highlights before we came on of Saturday, and he just ran the right wing back of Leyton Orient absolutely ragged, and then he took his goal really well. I think the keeper probably could have saved it, squirmed under him a little bit, but then the third goal coming from a corner to run that distance. I mean, I know it was pathetic from a Leyton Orient point of view, but you still got to do it, and he's one player that our left wing back, well, depending on which side he plays on, because the thing with Mendez-Laing, you can play on both sides. If you operate down the left, it'd be quite interesting, because Sorensen is probably better going forward than he is defending. So if he sort of stays high and wide, it might then not allow Sorensen to get as high in press, and we might not be able to press you, and we might have issues from there. But he's certainly one that I'd rather not be on the score sheet. I think also you got some really good players. Obviously, Cashin, Max Bird are very good players at this level. How they're both still at Derby at this point, I've got absolutely no idea. If they didn't have close connections to the city and the club, I would imagine they probably would have gone. I think Collins has been in good form recently as well. He scored a couple of goals, and he's one of those strikers we've seen at Luton at this level before, that when he scores one, he goes on a bit of a run. And I know he's scored a couple. I find it mad how he's now your starting striker, despite being linked with a move away or similar to Shrewsbury. It was a bit mental, but I've pretty much named half your squad there, haven't I? If you could all be sick and forfeit the game, that'd be banging.
Yeah, a bit of food poisoning at the Christmas party would be the order of the day, I guess. But no, you're exactly right. And I think when you list through those players, you kind of, you expect us to be challenging in the top areas. And that's what we've been able to do. We've gone on that run, and now we obviously find ourselves 3 points off the top. So it will be interesting. I still feel like we've got a little bit of a blip in us, but that's just me as a Derby County fan. And I'm a little bit worried that you took 4 points off us last year. It's taken us over 20 minutes, but I'm interested in your theory on Paul Warne. So let's get on to Paul Warne, because I know you've mentioned it on your pod. So I'll give you the floor. What's your view on Paul Warne?
Mark, look, I think Paul Warne is a great manager. Before I get this in, and I didn't say that. I tell you what, I was coming back from Fleetwood. I think you'd been at Peterborough last season, and I stopped for services down. I think it must have been sort of South Yorkshire just before I got home, and Paul Warne was in there having a Whopper, Burger King, and I didn't say this to his face because he's such a nice bloke with his bobble hat on. I didn't want to say anything. He was really nice. He took the time to speak to me. He said he was really impressed with Lincoln whenever he's come across them, because we've done well against his Rotherham sides. But my theory on Paul Warne, and a lot of Derby fans might disagree with me, is that he's not the right man to take Derby County forward. Now, that might seem crazy because he's got a really good track record at this level. My theory is that Paul Warne is better off with a team that I'm not expected to do well. So you look at Rotherham, they are a smaller club compared to Derby County. they are a club that are punching above their weight to be into the Championship. You look at the money being thrown around at that division, with Leicester, Southampton, Leeds this year, especially spending quite a bit of money, shows you how much of a footballing overachievement Rotherham United are. I think he can do it when the pressure's off. But when you're at a club like Derby, who get into the third tier, let's not be daft, Jamie. Like 5, 6, 7 years ago, you guys were minutes and games away from the Premier League. Like, you guys were, I remember when I was at uni in Derby, like I mentioned last time, I thought you guys were up. That night after you beat Leeds, I thought you guys were going to go up. I remember watching you in the playoff semi-final as well against Fulham, and you played really well. I just thought, if someone can come in and get Derby bouncing, you guys would be in the Premier League, and you wouldn't be sat here talking to me, because quite frankly, why are you? Because we're Lincoln. But my theory is that I don't think that when Paul Warne gets a job where he's expected to win, I don't think you see the best in him. You've seen in recent home performances, before the good run, that he struggled to get by teams. I think when he's got the expectation and all the media coverage of Derby County and the name, and you've got 25,000 fans there every week, there's an expectation, and I think Paul Warne does better. I think I said this to you earlier. I think Paul Warne would do a better job for us than he would for you, because at Lincoln there's no expectation. He's a serial winner at this level, granted, and I take that point on board. But I think you'd be better off. I thought you'd have been better off appointing a Darren Moore, or someone that's handled a big club at this level before, maybe like an Alex Neil, or of someone of that ilk. But you went for Paul Warne, which was a good choice, because now I look like an idiot because you've won 4 or 5 in a row. But yeah, I know you sort of agreed with me to an extent, but I just don't think he's the man to lead Derby County forward, especially if you get into the Championship. I don't think he could take you. You guys have aspirations of being in the Premier League. I don't think he's a man to take you to them.
Yeah, like I said to you earlier, I do agree. And I think, if you listen to our podcast a month ago, we just come off the back of the Stevenage loss, and we were all quite emotional, and we were saying the same thing. And you do look at it earlier in the season, playing at home against some teams, and there was that kind of underdog mentality. And like you say, we're Derby County, we should be absolutely dominating teams at Pride Park. Okay, you go away and maybe you have a period of sussing the game out and kind of maybe being under the cosh for a period of time, but your class should kind of reign supreme, So yeah, I tend to agree. And I think actually over the course of the last couple of weeks, the handbrake's come off a little bit. I think he's been forced to change his ways a little bit. Obviously that coincides with having key players back. And yeah, I do completely understand what you're saying, and it'll be interesting. Obviously, we're hoping that we get out of this division. It's the best chance to get out of this division this season. But I think it will be interesting next season, because, like you say, is he the person to then take Derby County beyond that? I'm not too sure. But at the moment, we're loving him. We're loving the bubble hat. I tweeted out on Saturday, I can find his jokes funny again because we're on a bit of a run. So yeah, let's see what happens in the lead up to Christmas. And I think where we'll be challenged the most is our Christmas to New Year running, because we've got Oxford, Wigan, Peterborough as well. So they're not easy games by any stretch. Well, lastly, I just want to get your prediction for the game. Obviously, you're fairly confident. But well, before you came on stream, you were fairly confident that you might nick something. You take a point. Is that your prediction for the game? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because you mentioned earlier that our record against the top teams last year was great. This year we've lost 6 games. We've lost to Pompey, Bolton, Stevenage, Peterborough, and Oxford, who are all pretty much the teams above us. The only times we've been able to beat a team above us was Blackpool at home when they were rubbish, and we took a point off Barnsley the other week. Crikey! I think we'll come and get a point. Look, we'll bring a lot of fans. I know we've sold in the region of 2,000 at the point of selling. I spoke to my mate Ben, who's a big Derby fan, and he said that Lincoln were some of the best away fans that they had at Pride Park last year. And I think it was a really, really magical Valentine's Day night that we had at Pride Park. And I think a lot of people are going in, it's just before Christmas, it's the Christmas holidays, and people want to go, it's Pride Park. It's the one game that we all looked out for this year because it's fairly local. We're probably the closest team that we've got in League One geographically. It comes at a good time when people are off work as well. So, and plus under Skabala, we're playing some good football at the moment. I think that will bring a few more as well. And the players know the roles and they're learning slowly. We've had a bit more time on the training pitch to work on his ways. I'm going to go Derby 1, Lincoln 1. I think that, as long as we don't lose the game, because, we want to stay in touch. If we want to get into the top 6, and I don't think we will at the end of the day, we want to try and stay in touch with you for as long as we can. And if you've got games in hand, if we can, just keep the distance as it is now and not let you get further away from us, then we still stand a chance of getting in the top 6. So I'm going to go for 1-1, but an entertaining 1-1. Better than the one we had last year with 2 offside goals that both stood. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, I think 1-1 is a sensible bet. My feeling is I think we'll win on Saturday against Wycombe. Yeah. And I'm always pessimistic as a Derby fan, so I know that this run is going to end at some point. And it might be against Lincoln, and that will be the game before Christmas. And then everyone will have an average Christmas if it's a draw, and if we lose, then it'll be a poor Christmas. But yeah, I'd say 1-1 would probably be a sensible result. Although the fact that we just seem to be finding different ways to win at the moment, I think equally we could nick something in the last minute and it be a bit of a smash and grab. So
I think it depends on Saturday or Jamie, doesn't it? Because you've got Wycombe at home, which will be tough. I mean, they're on a bad run at the moment, and you're on a good run, so you'd think it would be straightforward. But they're a different animal this year under Bloomfield, and I think you'll see that on Saturday. They play a completely different brand of football. And depending on how you get on against them, let's say you struggle to beat them 1-0 at home or something, and we go and trounce Reading like we should really do. We're going to come into this game on, and absolutely flying high. And you guys were thinking, another home game against a team we should be beating. What happened last time, and we'll be thinking, well, it's Derby away, mate. Get your head screwed on. Let's go for it.
Exactly. Well, Jake, thanks so much for coming along and having a chat about all things Lincoln. Like we said at the top of the show, Jake's from That League One podcast. Go check them out. Some really good content. Lots of laughs. My one question, though, Jake, what happens if one of you get promoted? Have you had that conversation?
Well, yes, we have had it, and we call it T-Lop at the moment because that's what That League One pod's now. We're gonna go T-Flop, That Football League podcast.
Love it.
I'm hoping Pompey bottle it because I don't think I'd be able to hear the end of it if Pompey got promoted. I was sort of glad that Oxford took a bit of a dive and haven't got going under Buckingham, or else we could have lost 2 of them, and then Fleetwood are in the bottom 4. I could be the only one left in League One at this rate. But yeah, no, it's there will be no promotions on T-Lop this year. Pompey are going up though, aren't they? They just are.
They look pretty good. Yeah, they looked pretty good last night. I think they're the team to beat, or the team to just keep at an arm's length. Let them be above you, but finish second. I think that's my aim for Derby. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, really appreciate you coming on. If you have enjoyed this episode, please go on and rate us 5-star wherever you get your podcast from. We will be back on Sunday reacting to the Wycombe game. Hopefully it's another 3 points and this run continues. But until then, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Jake, and we'll see you soon.
Up the Imps.